Welcome back to Legacy Mastered, hosted by Next Level Games. Welcome to the TCM channel. I am Sully and I am joined by another teammate, Graham King.
And we have here the penultimate round before the top 8. We've got Patrick Robertson on the right and Sohn on the left. Paddy last year actually won this event on the same deck, Sneak and Show. He's not known as being a legacy player, but he does come and get good results when given the opportunity.
Yeah, and we've got Sohan on the left from an amazing podcast, Malta 3. I have to give them a really great shout out. They're doing some amazing content over there. On one of my favourite deck lists, Eldrazi, which is, he's playing, if we look at it, he's playing a very, really cool build. Oh, hang on.
While we're waiting for Sully to get that up, we'll just go quickly over Paddy Robinson's deck list. So it's the traditional Sneak and Show list. It does have one Beseiju in the mana base. We aren't playing the Omni shows that a few decks have decided to play. So we've got 4 Emrakul, 4 Grizzlebrand, 4 Show and Tell, 4 Sneak Attack, and then the full range of cantrip options, Ponder, Brainstorm, and Preordain. We also have 1 Jason Mind Sculptor and 1 Flusterstorm in the main deck, as well as a few things which are a little bit different from the norm.
Yeah, so in Eldrazi, Sohan's self-proclaimed deck list, we've got your pretty stock standard land base, 4 Ancient Tomb, 4 Cavern of Souls, 2 City of Traders, 4 Temples, 4 Eyes, 3 Mishra's Factories, 2 Urborgs, 2 Wastelands, and 1 Caracas. He has your Dismember and Warping Whales, and your creature bases are 4 Mimics, 4 Endless Ones, 4 Matter Reshaper, 4 Reality Smashers, 4 Thought-Knot Seers, 1 Endbringer, and 2 Simian Spirit Guides to help him get those out really fast. And he's also got your Chalice of the Voids, Thorns, and Jittes.
And Paddy is on the play and leads off on a Preordain. Both of the players keeping their 7.
Yeah. It's hard to say who's the favour in this. Sohan just wants to go really fast in this matchup and hope that Paddy doesn't get a sneak attack or a show and tell down.
Yeah, so definitely where Soohan is trying to get his advantage out is going to be in the lock pieces he plays. So if he can get Chalice on the Void on 1 down, it means that it cuts off a lot of Paddy's cantripping options, which limits the amount of things that he can do to try and find his combo pieces. And he's also got 4 Thorn of Amethyst as well, which is going to be slowing down what the deck is trying to do as well and just making him do everything a turn later.
Yeah.
With that said, if at some point the show and tell does get resolved, which isn't going to be shut off by Chalice, then it's going to be a very hard game for Soohan to win, and he doesn't really have an answer in the main deck for that. And just as we mentioned earlier about lock pieces, Soohan leads turn 1 on Chalice of the Void on 1.
Which is an amazing play for Eldrazi. It helps you stay in the game because you are a tiny bit of a slower deck, even though people think it's massively aggressive. You want to slow people down from finding their answers.
And so Paddy follows up his island with a City of Traders into Show and Tell. We've got a Reality Smasher on one side and a Grizzlebrand on the other. So things don't look like they're going to go well for Soohan from here, especially with the life gain just entirely counteracting what that Reality Smasher is doing.
Sohan really wanted to see an Endbringer on that Show and Tell because that really helps Sohan stop Paddy doing just attacking essentially. It's the Planeswalker of the Eldrazi deck.
Would you like to explain that a little bit more? Because the Grizzlebrand should be just flying over the top from what I understand.
So with Endbringer, it has 3 modes. Tap, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. Second ability, pay 1 colorless mana. Target creature can't attack or block this turn. And third is pay 2 colorless mana to draw a card. And it has an amazing ability written on the top of the card where it untaps every turn.
So it's really the target creature can't attack, which you'd be mainly looking to leverage in this particular position.
Yeah, which is really cool. Jute might help a tiny bit, but it's going to be hard.
So if Soohan swings in here and Paddy does decide to block, then he can just kill off the Grizzlebrand with the 2 Yumizawa's Jitters counter. So I think that it's quite an obvious play, so I think that would be played around, but it's still means that he's going to get 5 points of damage in. Against aggressive decks, most of the time Sneak and Show, if they've got the Grizzlebrand in play, don't actually want to activate it and lose that life, but really just want to be attacking and gaining as much life as possible and sitting on the fact that they've got a 7/7 lifelink creature in play.
Yeah. So you can see Paddy's trying to decide whether he blocks or just lets the 5 damage go through. He does have a sneak attack in hand, I can see.
So he decides to activate it by the look of it.
Yeah.
Going down to 13 here and drawing 7 extra cards, and we'll make a decision from there as to what the next play is that he's going to make.
That is the real powerhouse of Gristle Daddy. Being able to draw 7 cards at any point to help you make your decision for you.
Now a few decks will run, on Soohan's side I should say, will run Vixen Revoker just to cut off plays like this, such as Sneak Attack and Grizzlebrand. Has he got anything like that in the deck at the moment?
In his main board, he doesn't main board Revoker. I know he's moving towards that. But he does have 2 Pithing Needles in his sideboard.
Okay, so we'll see how this first game goes down, and then we'll have a look at it. So he elects to block there, going back up to 13 after activating it a second time, and Soohan immediately just takes those counters off with Jitte.
Yeah.
And we'll see what he does with those cards in hand. He's got an Emrakul, a Sneak Attack, and Lotus Petal, and a Red Source, so I think we're about to see a 15-15 obliterate, or even annihilate, I should say, Soohan's board.
Yeah, and with so much card advantage in Paddy's hand, it's going to be a real struggle uphill for Sohn. Fetching, putting the
Emrakul in play, and that's Soohan's board. He goes to 1. We'll see whether he plays the next turn out. He decides not to.
Yeah.
We're just going to go straight into the board here. So, on Paddy's side, we have 3 Blood Moon, I should say, 2 Grim Lava Matcher, 2 Engineered Explosives, 2 Red Blast, 1 Through the Breach, 3 Leyline of the Void, 1 Echo in Truth, and 1 Defense Grid. The main thing I'd be looking at here is Blood Moon, just getting that down against Eldrazi and turning off Thought Not Seer, turning off Reality Smasher just gives you so much time to be doing what you want to do.
And the Endbringer, it turns off Endbringer as well.
That's right. Grim Lava Master is just a little bit too slow and won't have enough impact, as a lot of the other spells are as well. I might bring in 1 Echo in Truth as well if I was Paddy.
Yeah.
What's Soohan got on his side?
So Soohan has a second Endbringer in his sideboard, 2 Aweless Dust, 4 Leyline of the Void, 2 Pithing Needles, 2 Ratchet Bombs, 2 Thorn of Amethyst, 1 Dismember, and 1 Waste. So I reckon Soohan might bring in the Waste, hopefully thinking that Paddy's bringing the Blood Moons. He will definitely be bringing in the Endbringer and the Pithing Needles. All his dust, he might bring in. It's a hard call.
It feels like that's going to be quite a slow card against... he's trying to get to 7 mana against a deck which is going to win when it's at 3, possibly on second turn. It just seems like it's not doing enough soon enough, and especially if you're facing down an Emrakul on the other side of the board, it doesn't actually deal with that particular threat either.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see he's taking out some of his creatures, which is hard for the Eldrazi deck. So he's taking out the Matter Reshapers because they just don't do enough in this matchup. A lot of the time they die and you don't get to see a good answer that you really want.
Yeah, so one of the key cards that Soohan does actually have in his main deck is Warping Rail, which has one of the modes of counter a target sorcery spell, and one of the main cards Paddy's got in his deck, Show and Tell, is obviously a sorcery, so he can sometimes get some leverage off that, but obviously not against the turn 1 and 2. It makes it a little bit harder when you don't have mana up. And instead, you're trying to deploy your threats.
Yeah, and he's only playing 2 of them, so it's going to be harder for him to see those and also predict when to hold them up.
Yeah. So both players just shuffling up here. We'll see what happens in the next game, especially with Soohan being on the play, getting access to those lock pieces earlier is going to be good for them.
Looking at Sohan's deck list, it's interesting. He's on the 4i plan. Personally, I play 3, and I know he's moving more towards the 3i Avugan plan because you don't ever want to draw them when you already have one on the board.
Yeah, the multiple legendary cards in the same slot does work against itself, obviously.
Yeah, and unless you have an Urborg out, it really does nothing. It's just a dead card in your hand. The Mishra's Factories are really cool. It just means that you can get a creature out without them being able to counter it. Karakas is probably going to be a powerhouse in this matchup as well. He's got 1 Karakas in his main board. So hopefully he sees that to hopefully bounce any of Paddy's threats that he barrages Sohan with.
So another thing to note here is just how long this tournament is. We're at 7 rounds in, and Paddy, who has played at a competitive level several times on the GP and the PT, is used to playing those extra long tournaments, even 1 or 2 days long with multiple rounds, and I'm not sure that Soohan does have that experience, and it's really hard to just make sure that you're still keeping up your concentration playing such a complicated format at Legacy after 7 hours of Magic. And this is for top 8 that these two guys are playing here, so they really want to win.
Yeah, and it is a massive mental strain throughout the day, so you have to really give it to Paddy because he shows results in these big tournaments. Sohan coming up through the ranks, and he has been also showing some really good results in the weeklies, which is really cool to see. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like Soohan's decided to keep that one.
Sohan also did top 8, the Jewels for the Jewels, which was hosted by the Salt Mine, giving money to
prostate cancer research.
Prostate cancer research, which is an amazing thing that Salt Mine did, and Sohan coming in top 8 there really gives a test to his playstyle and the choice of decks that he's decided to go with.
Yeah, big shout out to Isaac at Next Level Games in Mooney Ponds for that as well.
Yeah, they did an amazing event down there. Amazing barbecue. I think we need to see more barbecues at Magic Games.
Yeah, so we've got Paddy looking at his 6 here, just deciding whether or not to go ahead with that one. And we've got a phone out at a Comprel event, so not sure we're allowed to do that.
I think he might be looking up a card name.
Yeah, we can only assume that's right, but Paddy pondering on that one for quite a while. We'll just see exactly what happens. It might depend on exactly what this card is that is being looked up.
Yeah, it just looks white to me, so I think it is a card name that he's looking
anyway, Mulls again going down to 5.
So Paddy really just wants to open up with a turn 1 show and tell, I'm assuming, and just essentially turn 1 Sohan and just get it over and done with.
That's right. Having plays like show and telling on turn 1 and putting in a sneak attack is just good because it means that any threat that he draws for the rest of the game can just be immediately deployed as well.
Yeah, which is really cool.
So he's got a forcible here that I can see. Looks like he's deciding to keep Scries to the bottom. And Soohan is on the play, so we'll see what happens here. We've got a Cavern of Souls, I assume naming Eldrazi.
Yeah.
Plays it out and plays a Pithing Needle, which we assume would be on a sneak attack. But
sneak attack, it could also be on Gristle Daddy.
Grizzlebrand or Scalding Tarn is the other one that might be used, but it's a little bit risky, obviously. Especially with them playing 4 off-colour fetches as well, which Paddy's showing the Misty Rainforest that he leads on, going down to 19.
I do like if Sohan named sneak attack here, and hopefully has a Warping Whale in hand to stop Paddy's sneak attack, show and tells, to try and stop Paddy just sneaking in all those creatures.
Yeah, so Paddy leading on a Ponder, just digging for those combo pieces that he needs.
So he does have a Emrakul in hand and a show and Force of Will in hand on Paddy's side. Sohan having a City of Traders, and I didn't quite see what else he had.
Yeah, so puts them back, decides not to move them and shuffles instead. And I assume that will be a pass back to Soohan unless he plays out some Lotus Petals, which I don't think is what is going to be happening at the moment. So just draws that card off Ponder.
Yeah.
And
Ancient
gets an
Tomb.
Ancient Tomb, passes turn back. So we've got
Ancient Tomb, Gristlebrand, Scalding Tarn, and a Force of Will. We have Wasteland, City of Traders. I think there's a Caracas in his hand as well.
Yeah, well, Caracas
And
would
an
be
Ancient Tomb.
quite a good card to see, but
Ancient
play
Tomb
that
coming down.
Doesn't seem to have any lock pieces past that Pithing Needle, so we'll just see where it goes here. I would assume it would be some kind of threat, and taps the Ancient Tomb and plays out a Thorn of Amethyst, so that's quite good for him to see. However, the Ancient Tomb on Paddy's side does mean that he can just immediately play through that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's hard playing Thorns out against a deck that also plays Soul Lands.
Yeah, so I think I saw a
City of Traders.
Thought Not Seer on Soohan's side of the board there.
Yeah.
In his hand, so that obviously is some extra disruption that he has, and we'll get to see exactly what's in Paddy's hand. Paddy fetching for an extra island, playing preemptively around the Wasteland in Soohan's hand.
Yeah, which is really cool.
And,
and you don't need dual lands if you're just on the I'm going to potentially draw a Blood Moon plan.
Yeah, so cast Ponder for 2. Has a quick look again, and we'll see what this leads to.
Making Ponder standard legal again, Thorn of Amethysts. Making them pay a reasonable amount for those cantrips.
Yeah. So he decides to lose them on top this time. He draws a Preordain, so a little bit more filtering, and passes the turn back again. Okay, so that is a Simian Spirit Guide.
Yeah.
And plays out his Wasteland, and I believe that's a Thought Not Seer we'll see here.
I think it is a Thought Not Seer. Yeah.
So this simultaneously gets clocked down and disrupts Paddy's main game plan as well. So it's exactly what the Eldrazi deck wants to be doing against this type of deck. Shows him Force Preordain, Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, and an Emrakul.
I like taking the Emrakul here just to exile it, and it's gone.
It's really interesting. Like, he knows the top 2 cards, and I think the fact that he kept Preordain means that he wants to get rid of them as well.
Yeah.
Stopping him from filtering at this point when you've got the 5-turn clock is a decision you have to make on whether the Preordain is more important, whether the Force of Will is more important, since the Force of Will is only protection at the moment because you've got the Cavern of Souls on Eldrazi.
Yeah.
So I don't that's not going to be that relevant until you get into a counter war, which isn't where the deck's going to end up. So the real decision is between Preordain and Emrakul. Emrakul means that he needs to find 2 pieces. He needs to find both Show and Tell and another big creature, and Preordain just stops him from filtering more. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just a decision of what angle you think is best to attack in. Obviously, as you've said, you've had a bit more experience with the deck, but you think that the Emrakul is the better option.
Yeah,
so,
I like taking the threat over the counter spells because you've got your Cavern of Souls naming Eldrazi, so you don't really care at this point about the Force of Will, and you can start playing your non-Eldrazi into that Force of Will to try and get the Preordain out of the hand.
Yeah, so Soohan, Paddy plays Ancient Tomb into the Wasteland on the other side of the board.
Yeah.
Doesn't care too much about it, and Soohan goes for the Matter Shaper and beats in, just reducing the clock a little bit further with that extra power there.
Down to 14, I believe. So yeah,
I think it's 15, but we'll check that to make certain.
Okay. Two fetches and 4 damage. Yeah.
So yeah, we've got Paddy on a 2-turn clock, and it's just really a question of what he can dig out here. Tapping for 4 mana, which sounds like he's found something good. He does have the show and tell there, and I assume that means that the Preordain, since he did 2 on the bottom, it means he's had 2 very good draws in a row.
Sohan deciding, does he put in a Matter Reshaper, or he does the Simian Spirit Guard, which is interesting. I don't hate the play because he can't cast it, but
yeah. So he's got the Grizzlebrand in play now, and there's a little bit of extra power on the board this time, but it's going to go in a very similar direction to what happened last time, I think, with Paddy being able to just hold up a giant wall against the Thought-Knot Seer and negate any damage that would otherwise happen with the lifelink from Grizzlebrand. So we'll see whether anything spicy comes out from Soohan's side, but I feel that once the show and tell resolves and is in play, it's very much almost a foregone conclusion. So he attacked with Mana Reshaper just to see if he can hit anything off the top of the deck. Obviously, if it's 3 converted mana cost or less from this card, it means it makes it straight into play, which it does, and this actually plays around the City of Traders, meaning he doesn't need to sacrifice it either.
Which is really, really nifty, and the reason why Sohan enjoys Matter Reshaper a lot, because it can hit lands and just add an extra mana where you don't have to sack your city.
Yeah, so Paddy gaining 7 off that interaction, going back up to 21.
So I think we might be seeing an endless one. Yes. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a 7/7 endless one feels pretty good facing a Grizzlebrand.
That's right. Paddy did have engineered explosives in his board. If he did bring those in at all, it means that he can just run that out on 0 and destroy it, but I don't think that's really one of the cards that you would be bringing in this situation either.
Yeah, it might be a bit too cute because it hits the endless ones and hits the chalice, but I don't think Paddy cares at that point.
So just doing a little bit of quick combat math, working out whether or not the Grizzlebrand will get there before the 13 power that he's got on the other side of the board, and I believe it does. He decides to activate Grizzlebrand in this case, draws an extra 7. Just seeing if he might be able to run a sneak attack through that. We're not 100% certain exactly what's on the other side of the board for the Pithing Needle there, but he activates City of Trader to run out 2 extra Lotus Petals.
So we can assume now that Pithing Needle must be naming Sneak Attack.
Well, I don't think he drew one there. I did see quite a lot of counter spells though. There's 2 or 3 Force of Will. Is that a Submerge?
I think it is, and it looks like another Emrakul. It's not a Submerge?
I don't think it's a Submerge because it's not in the deck actually.
Yeah. So Sohan throwing in the handshake, he sees the inevitable fate. Good job to Paddy making it to top 8, and Sohan from mull to 3, putting up a pretty good fight there, which is really good.
Yeah, so once again it's almost a foregone conclusion once that show and tell resolves, but we'll see what happens in the top 8. Congratulations to those who made it in.
Yeah, stay tuned.